10th passage, question number 60 to question number 64. Now this passage has 5 questions. Now this passage basically talks about how witchcraft has evolved during the years. That is not the practice of witchcraft, but how the society looks at witchcraft. So the societal perception on witchcraft, how it has evolved over the years. So the first paragraph basically gives us an introduction to how the belief, that there is a popular belief that witches, armored by the religious or spiritual affirmation, use occult power, generally malignant in nature. And then it says that how the society shuns them. And then towards the last part, he gives you some examples, like the German sociologist Jürgen Habermas has been mentioned. He talked about rationality in the sphere of public communication and public perception. So the entire passage talks about the social perception towards witchcraft and witches, or people who are considered to be witches. Now the first question says that the author's central focus is on, this is a central idea question. So here we will eliminate any option which is either too narrow or too broad. Now A is too narrow. It says that the practice of witchcraft throughout the world. Now in this passage the author talks about America and UK to some extent, but that's not the focus of the passage. And the passage also doesn't focus on what are the places where witchcraft has been practiced, but it more or less talks about the evolution of witchcraft and how the society has gone about perceiving people who are accused of witchcraft. Now B says how witchcraft has evolved through the ages and is still considered as one of the most important social evils by many people in today's age. Now this one is supported both in the first paragraph, or in the paragraph which talks about how the Middle Ages treated them, and even in the last paragraph. So a central idea is an idea which is scattered throughout the passage and more or less encompasses all other ideas mentioned in the passage. Now look at option C and D, how witchcraft has been classified and how churches dealt with witchcraft. Now the part where the church has dealt with witchcraft has been mentioned in only one paragraph. How witchcraft has been classified, there is no data in the passage. It simply says that witchcraft has been classified as only one thing, and that is social evil, which is also mentioned in the first paragraph. Hence option B is the answer for this question. Let's move on to the next question, that is question number 61. It's a direct question. The author believes that. Now whenever we get such a question, all we have to do is we have to find the right option from the passage. Now the first option says witches are often ostracized. Now if you go back to the passage, in the first paragraph he says that when people collectively identify a person as a witch, they stop every communication with the person, and in many cases, according to the gravity of the situation believed to be created by the witch, she or he is publicly exterminated, that is executed or killed. So for question number 61, that witches are often ostracized, we have enough data in the passage to believe that this is the answer. Option B says churches have always striven to protect people branded as witches. In fact, the opposite is true according to the passage. And the passage mentions, or if you look at the paragraph where they've talked about the church's reaction towards the church's reaction towards towards people who are accused of witchcraft, particularly if you look at the last sentence of the second paragraph. Let's go there. You see, during the late 18th century, church organization demanded the death penalty of not only persons identified as witches, but also persons who lodged such complaints. So if they were trying to protect it, definitely the passage doesn't talk about it. Hence, the church has always striven to protect people is wrong. Option C says hostility towards witches increased marginally during the initial years of the modern period. Now the exact opposite true according to the passage. Look at this line. Historians have found that while the persecution of witches was a rarity during the Middle Ages, their number reached staggering proportion. So staggering is a word which means a rapid increase. So the word marginally is the exact opposite. Hence option C can be eliminated. Option D says people believe that witches can be divided into different classes. Now the entire passage says that people brand witches as evil. So there is just one class. So there is no other data given as far as the passage is concerned about the classification of witches by the people. Hence the answer to question number 61 is A. Let's go to question number 62. it talks about the tone of the author. Now, in such a question, the first thing we have to find out is the central idea. Now, we got that from question number 60, that how witchcraft has evolved through the ages. Now, what has the author been doing? Has he been positive in his approach, or is he negative, or is he neutral? Now, in this passage, the author's tone is definitely a bit negative. He highlights what are the evils associated with witchcraft, and if you read the passage thoroughly, you feel that probably the author supports that, you know, witches are punished and they should be punished if they practice an occult, etc. So the author has also done a lot of research, and he also gives you enough data that how the issue is looked at, or how the issue is looked at from a sociological perspective. So the author's tone can be called as critical in this passage. Now, disparaging means basically to belittle someone, or to, you know, treat that somebody's opinion is incorrect, but the author here gives you a very objective opinion, hence option D can be eliminated. Didactic means preaching. When you ask someone to do or be ready to die, that kind of tone is called didactic. Or when you try to persuade someone or exhort someone to do something that you wish is, you know, to do, or you wish that person to do, then your tone becomes didactic. Now here the author hasn't given us any conclusions that we need to follow, hence this option is incorrect. And pedantic means bookish, which looks like an irrelevant option in this passage. So answer is C. Let's go to question number 63. Now here it says, consider the following statements and find out which of these statements is correct. Now in this case, it's also another direct question. Statement 1 says, gained momentum in the modern period which is marked by rationality. Now this is mentioned in the last paragraph when he talks about Jürgen Habermas, and it also gives you he talks about another sociologist, Gachiere. So in that case, there is this line, it has reached a staggering proportion during the early modern period, a period marked by a steady rationalization of the life world in Habermasian sense. So that option is correct. Was maximum in Europe followed by Americas. Now we don't have any data about how many people were prosecuted, and there is no comparative statistics given in the passage. Hence only statement 1 is correct, so our answer is A. Now question number 64. The author believes that witches. Now here it's an inferential question. We have to choose that option where we have enough data in the passage. Option A says they can sometimes be benevolent. We don't have a single line in the passage which talks about a witch being benevolent. Benevolent means kind or magnanimous. So option A is wrong. B says were rightly put to death between the early 1400s and the late 1700s. Now here, whether they were rightly put to death, all the people who were accused, whether they whether they were the trial was fair, whether they were actually guilty or not, the passage doesn't talk anything about it. And whether the author believes that the persecution of witches was right or not, it hasn't been mentioned in this passage, so we can negate it. Were at times executed far away from the public glare. It's wrong according to this passage. I mean, the passage doesn't talk about it. It in fact says that they were executed in the public sphere. They were publicly exterminated, if we remember that line. And option D says are related to the devil. Now this one can clearly be supported by the last paragraph. It talks about, let's look at that line. It says that according to him, this was related to the increasing belief of the people in the supernatural power of the devil, a process rightly termed as the diabolization of local witchcraft beliefs. So from that we can say that D is the correct answer.